Welcome to Trash Talk Reverse. I'm Harry, and today we're going to be watching Season 1, Episode 3 of Game of Thrones. Now, the last episode I think was better than the first one, but it still had me thinking a lot about the future, and I feel like that's the problem that I'm having rewatching this show, is all I can think about is where stuff is going, and it just reflects badly on how stuff is happening right now. I see characters being set up in a way where I know it's not optimized. And without further ado, let's jump into Episode 3. I always wonder why George R. R. Martin decided to make Westeros and Essos pretty much an exact copy of England and East non-England. So many fantasy writers, they just do a direct copy of medieval England.
When I watched the Mad King die, I remembered him laughing as your father burned. It felt like justice.
Is that what you tell yourself at night? You were avenging my father when you shoved your sword in Aerys Targaryen's back. You served him well, and serving was safe.
Get him. And once again, Ned proves that he knows these Lannisters, so why would he put himself in a situation that screws him over?
We are all praying for Prince Joffrey's full recovery.
Shame you didn't say a prayer for the butcher's son.
Get him.
Without the king.
Winter may be coming, but I'm afraid the same cannot be said for my brother.
What weird forced dialogue.
I'll have to borrow it. The Lannisters will accommodate, I expect. We already owe Lord Tywin 3 million gold. What's another 80,000?
Are you telling me the crown is 3 million in debt?
I'm telling you the crown is 6 million in debt.
How could he let this happen?
Ned here is rightfully baffled that the crown is in debt. But again, you see how much in debt they are to the Lannisters of all people. You know that the Lannisters hold a lot of power, and yet you showed them your hand anyway. No pun intended.
You are the king's hand, Lord Stark.
The smartest thing Varys did was go join Daenerys.
You fought off a direwolf.
I didn't fight off anything. It bit me, and all I did was scream.
At least he has some self-awareness.
Someday, you'll sit on the throne and the truth will be what you make it.
Cersei really ruined Joffrey.
If you'd rather lie with noble virgins, so be it. You are my darling boy, and the world will be exactly as you want it to be.
No wonder he turned into such a brat. Like, look at this parenting. Absent father, manipulative mother.
We allow the Northerners too much power.
How would you handle them?
And command them to supply 10,000 men to the Royal Army.
And if the Northerners rebel?
I'd crush them.
And these 10,000 Northern troops, would they fight for you or their lord? You've just invaded their homeland. Ask them to kill their brothers. A good king knows when to save his strength and when to destroy his enemies. Everyone who isn't us is an enemy.
See, that little lesson she gave Joffrey isn't bad, but what came before it, her parenting is very hit or miss. It's mostly miss. And this whole idea of everyone who isn't us is an enemy, that's not a very good lesson for a 14-year-old boy who doesn't know what to do with that information and basically takes it to mean, let's kill everyone else and do as I wish.
He killed my friend.
The Hound killed your friend.
The Hound does whatever the prince tells him to do.
The fact that they really just let the Hound kill a child and everyone was okay with that.
That's for you, love.
I haven't played with dolls since I was 8.
She's so ungrateful. Like, your dad's trying to do a nice thing and you're being bitter.
Where did you get this?
Just say it was John.
Little lady shouldn't play with swords.
I wasn't playing, and I don't want to be a lady.
I kind of hate it when these shows and movies do this thing where it's like, oh, it's unladylike to have swords and learn how to defend yourself, and oh, it's uncommon for women to know how to fight. Arya is different because she's not like other girls. She wants to learn how to fight and defend herself, and same with Brienne later on. And I'm always reminded of that line Éowyn has in Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. She says, women of this country learned long ago that those without swords can still die upon them. Love that line because yes, you need to learn how to defend yourself, especially someone like Arya who's of nobility and therefore not only has the resources, but can also be a target. In The Last Kingdom, you have Ethelflaed, the daughter of King Alfred, learning how to defend herself and use a sword, just like the real-life Ethelflaed did in history, however many centuries ago. So obviously, women did learn how to fight back in the day. So when I see medieval-type settings like this being like, oh, it's so weird for a woman to want to learn how to fight, I'm like, that can't be historically accurate. Because if Ethelflaed was leading people into battle in the 8th or the 9th century, and this is supposed to be based on the War of the Roses, which came several centuries later, you're telling me women were not learning how to fight? Especially nobility? I just feel like it's an overused trope at this point.
Sansa was dragged before the king and queen and asked to call the prince a liar. We must protect ourselves, look after one another.
Ned Stark is smart enough to know that you have to play the Lannisters very carefully, and I'm supposed to believe that this same dude
We've come to a dangerous place.
gets his ass caught by Cersei later on.
Fight a war amongst ourselves.
Kings froze to death in their castles, same as the shepherds in their huts. So is this the sort of story that you like?
Bran is a really curious kid. So when you see where his arc goes and he just loses all curiosity, all emotion, all personality, it's disappointing.
One time she told me the sky is blue because we live inside the eye of a blue-eyed giant named Macumba.
Maybe we do.
See, he's very inquisitive and he thinks about the world, and where does that go?
9 years since I set foot in the capital, and no one knew who I was the last time I came either.
Welcome to King's Landing, Lady Stark.
Dang, they got her ass right away.
Did you bring the dagger with you by any chance? My little birds are everywhere.
If he found out about the dagger because of the little birds would have had to have talked to one of the few people that Catelyn was talking to. So this guy, plus Robb, plus Theon, plus Maester Luwin, nobody else except who was there should know about this dagger.
It's mine. I lost this dagger.
To whom?
Tyrion Lannister, the imp.
Maybe the reason Jon wasn't raised as some random kid Ned found off the streets, but as his bastard, was so that he could learn how to fight and defend himself. But why couldn't Ned be like, oh, I want to give all the local kids a crash course on training so they can help us fight? I mean, the rest of the people should know how to fight as well, because they're going to become the defenders of the North.
Ned!
Yeah, sticking your head out of a window and being like, hey, husband, that's super inconspicuous.
They hate me because I'm better than they are.
It's a lucky thing none of them are trained by master-at-arms like your Sir Roderick.
See, Jon is so arrogant, and I know this is part of his character arc, but he's arrogant in a way that makes him extremely unlikable.
We have the blade.
Which Lord Tyrion will say was stolen from him. The only man who could say otherwise has no throat.
He's like a little brother to me, Ned. He would never betray my trust.
You're a true friend.
See, Ned's smart, but Catelyn's the one who's dumb in this first season.
The war for Cersei's cunt.
Get his ass.
Kill him, all bloody lot of them, until you and I are the only people left in this world.
Why don't y'all just elope and head to the south or the east? Take the kids and go. Nobody wants you here, losers.
The Lannisters in my bones, I know it.
You nearly killed poor Littlefinger yesterday.
He still loves you.
Which makes him super dangerous. Catelyn, use your brain. So if y'all can see that Littlefinger still loves Catelyn, you cannot trust him. You should know this.
You remember your first? That's Hiroshi. How do you do it?
Who cares, Skip? This guy's Barristan Selmy, right? Remember the name. I remember that he went to go be with Dany. Don't remember anything else. And the only reason I'm thinking about it is because this conversation is so damn boring and irrelevant.
Gods, what a stupid name. Lancel Lannister. Who named you? Some half-wit with a stutter.
Again, another instance of Robert Baratheon being an idiot. He's in debt to the Lannisters, he's surrounded by Lannisters, and he can't stop insulting them, people that he's constantly depending on. And it's not just the foresight of knowing what happens. Just watching this, it's like, dude, you are dumb. You conduct yourself in a way that leaves yourself vulnerable to the people around you.
We're telling war stories. Who was your first?
Oh, Jesus, this again.
What did the Mad King say when you stabbed him in the back? I never asked.
9 years and you never asked?
He said the same thing he'd been saying for hours. Burn them all, if that's all, your grace.
I think it would have been a cool transition if we had Jaime say burn them all and then cut to Dany on the horse. Right here.
Carl feels insulted by the number of slaves he's given. He might think the man too weak or the woman too ugly. Sometimes a Carl decides his riders haven't had a good fight in months.
What a weird way to create a race of people. And because of this arc, it is my belief that instead of going crazy and doing whatever nonsense they did to her character by season 8, she should have come back to Essos. That should have been her ending. She doesn't get to be on the throne, but she realizes that her true place is in the east and she comes back. Oh, but then we wouldn't have the super shocking death and the Mad Queen BS.
You do not command the dragon. I am Lord of the Seven Kingdoms. I don't take orders from savages or their sluts.
What? Kill these Dothraki dogs! I am your king!
Viserys is so irrational. Like, you married off your sister to the king of Dothraki, making her queen and making her in charge of the Dothraki. And despite the fact that Jorah is loyal to the Targaryens, he's not going to kill Dothraki on your behalf when surrounded by Dothraki. He's stupid too. All of these people are stupid. This episode so far is really unmemorable.
I've been disturbing reports. What kind of reports?
Reports that amount to nothing because the White Walkers only exist to drag out Jon and Bran's character arcs and barely have any impact on the story as a whole, from what I remember. There isn't really a point to the wall up until now. I mean, the wall itself does the job of keeping out wildlings, and it kept out White Walkers before, presumably. And I understand that now that they've seen something weird, they're going out to investigate. But why were they going on excursions in the first place? Just to, like, keep tabs on the wildlings?
Half the boys you've seen training will die north of the wall. Might be a wildling's axe that gets them.
I mean, this guy's saying some of these kids will die by a wildling's axe. Why are you going out there in the first place? There's no reason.
I'm not sure what I've done to offend you. I have great admiration for the Night's Watch.
Tyrion hasn't said anything to be insulting. Like, Benjen just strolls in and he's like, you think we're a joke? When did he say or indicate that he thought it was a joke? I feel like that was just a way for them to insert this conversation because they didn't have any other segue.
No one turns away a Lannister.
That scene was really long.
You move too much. I could just hold my sword out and let you do the work for me.
Sorry, but you're still not Uhtred. I know I keep saying this, but if their relationship had started with consent, then this would have felt more impactful. Falling in love with the guy who you were forced to marry and assaulted you the first few times that y'all were getting it on is an unfortunate plot turn. But falling in love with the guy who you didn't want to marry, but you still consented to being with is better. Well, at least she tried. Shows like this, where they have so many different threads going on, I'm wondering if there's not a way for them to have more seamlessly threaded the narratives of the various storylines that they're telling.
You must listen to me, boy. Boy, girl, you are a sword.
Then why have you been calling her boy? Call her sword. This dude just had war flashbacks. Really weird way to end the episode, but okay. I have to say, not a lot was going on there. It felt like dragged out filler. And yeah, there's some stuff that did happen. There's some stuff that you need to know, but I feel like the way this episode was crafted, it wasn't done in a way that felt like I should care. You know what I mean? And the word filler, I know it's a little weird to use, but there's ways to give us information without it feeling so boring. There's ways to build character without it feeling boring. That scene between Tyrion and the one guy, Yoren or whatever, at the Night's Watch, and then Benjen coming in, that just felt like it was going on for so long. And yeah, there was stuff in there to build character, but I just didn't feel like I cared. And same with the scene with Robert Baratheon and Barristan Selmy and then eventually Jaime Lannister. You want to craft your show in a way that those scenes where not much is happening but it's more dialogue, you want them to feel compelling. And you want us to care about the characters or care about what's going on or care about these relationships and dynamics so that we actually pay attention to those scenes. That's why those two scenes in particular, they felt like they were just thrown in there. Apart from the one guy telling Tyrion that they need more help, and I guess the introduction to Lancel Lannister. I don't know, I didn't like those scenes. And once again, we have this episode demonstrating that Ned Stark was thinking. Nobody else is thinking though. Catelyn Stark is not thinking. I know it's easy for me to say don't trust Littlefinger because I know what's going to happen, but trying to look at this as objectively as possible, at least from Ned's perspective. He sees Littlefinger as still being slimy and untrustworthy at this point, and Littlefinger is instrumental in him getting caught later on. So even if Catelyn was dumb and trusted Littlefinger, why did Ned? I guess I'll find out when I get to episode, I think it was either 7 or 8. And honestly, Robert Baratheon, I'm shocked that he made it this far. This dude is surrounded by Lannisters, and he's constantly making enemies of the people he's surrounded by. He has made himself vulnerable to the Lannisters. He's in debt to them. He has their kids. Of course, they're not his kids, but he thinks they are. He doesn't have personal relationships with people in his council, apart from Ned and Renly. I mean, this dude is just surrounded by snakes. And yeah, hindsight is 20/20, but like, this dude is dumb. He got to this position of king after the Lannisters betrayed the Targaryens. Now, at that time, of course, that's what Robert wanted. But as you can see in the scenes with Jaime and Robert and with Jaime and Ned, people still see Jaime as kind of slimy for stabbing Aerys Targaryen in the back. So you know this guy is sketchy and traitorous, and you know he has the power to overthrow kings, courtesy of his family. The reason you, Robert, married Cersei was because of that, because the Lannisters have power. And you are constantly making yourself so vulnerable to them, insulting them to their faces because you think, oh, I'm the king. I can get away with saying and doing whatever I want and not being careful. Like, this dude is just not smart. I feel like I want to say more about this episode, but even though I just watched it, I already can't remember what the hell happened. Bran had some lines. Jon stopped being a bitch. I mean, he's still annoying, but Jon had a 2-second lecture from Tyrion, which suddenly turned him into a teacher. Like, okay, you're still annoying though. Sansa was barely in it, and then Arya is getting to learn how to sword fight. Yeah, it just feels like a really dragged out story. But that's it for this episode, and I will see you in the next one.